So the question is, how many percent of 80 is 20? Well, you can actually think of, if you've got 80 and you were to divide that by 4, so a quarter of 80 would give you 20. And you know that a quarter is the same as 25%. So you could work it out like that, just by saying, okay, I know that it has to be a quarter, and I know that a quarter equals 25%. So you can actually work out percentages by knowing your fraction or your decimal equivalent. You could also work it out by saying that, okay, well, I know that 10% of 80 would be 8 kronas. Let's say that it was kronas here. 20% of 80 would be 16. 30% would be 24. That's too much. So I've got to be somewhere here in between the two. So I'll be able to see that here I've added 8 each time. So what I really need to get to 20 is by adding 4 here. So I'll somewhere exactly in the middle, I'm at 25%. So 25% of 80 kronas will be 20. How can we check that? Because we should always try and remember to do our check afterwards. We can check 25% means 25 parts out of 100 of 80. And we can calculate it quite simply like this, 25% of 80. We write it as we say it, 25% of, we put in a multiply sign here, 80. Then I can see I've got 2 zeros here that can cancel. So I just get that my answer is 25 divided by 10 is 2.5. 2.5 times by 8. 2 8s are 16. A half times 8 is 4. 16 plus 4 giving me 20. So I can see that I haven't made a silly mistake here by doing a quick check. Then it says, well, what about 20% of something giving us 60 then? So what do we know here? Well, we know that 20% is equivalent to 60. And that tells us then, well, what does that tell us? Well, that tells us if 20% is equivalent to 60, that must mean that 10% is equivalent to 30. How have I gone from 20 to 10? I've divided by 2. That means I do the same thing on the other side of my equation, divide by 2. So now I know that 10% is equivalent to 30. Well, how do I go from 10% to 100%? That's really easy. I multiply 10 by 10. That gives me 100%. So 100% must be equivalent to 30 times 10, which is 300. So now I have my answer here that 100%, my full price, would have been 300 kronas. What do I do now? Well, now I have to do my check, of course. Now I check that 20% of 300 is really 60. Let's make a little space up. We'll do it over here. 20% of 300. Let's see how that works out. Well, I've got a 0 here that will cancel with this 0, and a 0 here that will cancel with this 0. So I get 20 times 3 equals 60. So my check confirms that I haven't made a silly mistake in my calculation, and that it is true that 20% of 300 equals 60.